I'm going to read you the second excerpt from this Cy Twombly book of his home and studios. I was just like, the band Searows I use as my crying band because just like without fail, they take me to like the deepest, like stillest part of me, and I just see like visions of my life and like every like these like really beautiful like sweet moments of my life, like without really even necessarily seeing like pictures. It's just like a feeling. I'm just like in this really sort of like multi-level dimensional feeling that has a lot to do with the story I've been telling online for a long time. And the way that this band makes me cry, it almost feels like a performance art piece in itself. And as it was happening, I was like, I should film this. So that might be something that I do at some point. Cy Twombly was never our contemporary. He was only a guest in our times, like a few other utterly special figures who came from another era and remembered as past what humanity still had ahead of it. He took the deep lines of force and the foundations of antiquity far more seriously than the contemporary oscillations surrounding him. Once, while Cy Twombly was traveling for the first time to Italy, Gottfried Benn, his German kindred spirit, I'll have to look that person up, wrote, "When I think my mouth feels the ashes." It reminds me of Melancholia, Kirsten Dunst, when she's like sitting at the table and they're like everyone's kind of like ignoring or oblivious to her depression, and she eats the food and says it tastes like ashes and spits it out. This is precisely the taste that was always on Cy Twombly's tongue too. But he was one of the few who felt that these ashes still glowed from the fires of the past. While Andy Warhol was declaring the Brillo box art, while Tom Wesselmann was painting his antiseptic nudes, while Klaus Oldenburg was blowing up toothpaste tubes into monumental sculptures, precisely at this time, Cy Twombly was delving into texts by Sallust, Homer, and Ovid, and traveling through Italy and to the mythical Greek islands, to Mykonos, to Samos. Old Europe instead of the New World. What I really like about Cy Twombly is basically exactly what they're talking about here, that he like feels he's this very like timeless figure, which I feel like is what every artist should be, really. Like the ability to pull from other eras. And I mean, as I say this, I think it's hard for us not to be doing this, but his studios like always had these like classic like Greek statues everywhere, mixed with like his like scribble, really large like scribble canvases, and he would have like on a lot of his pieces he's written like Greek gods and like things that feel like notes from research that he's taken, and I just that's just something that I really appreciate. But this had nothing to do with nostalgia or with conjuring the past. For Twombly, the gods simply are not dead, as Faulkner put it. The past isn't dead. It is not even past. Yeah, exactly. For him, Homer is a contemporary author, as is Sallust and of course Ovid, this conjurer of eternal transformation. They are contemporary authors because Twombly reads them in his present, making them his contemporaries through the act of reading. Because he forms a connection with them on the level of feeling, thereby retrieving them from the temporal void of the libraries. Exactly. Whenever I like to learn about art history simply for the fact that you get to learn about a lot of different people, but this idea of like timelines and order and like firsts and like people being like the pioneer of something, you know, as much as I like to win, it's you just have to scoff at it every time, because it's like every artist who makes something is channeling like something very universal, and like nothing's ever come first, or like there's no order to anything. There's no, you know, in post-war painting since 1945, the art of Cy Twombly constitutes a unique form of osmotic interesting use of permeability between eras. An eternal flow runs over his canvases like a stream. I want someone to talk about me like this. For that reason, his drawings, his paintings, his simultaneously omniscient and searching handwriting, please, seem to be based on physical and mental experiences that no one could have actually had. As for the photographs in the present volume, which tell the story of this great artist with the aid of his ateliers and his refused or conscious acts of self-staging, they too are part of this magical current flowing from the past into the future, only occasionally lapping against the shores of the mutable present. After Twombly left America, whose obsessive careening into the future ill suited him, and settled in Italy, such a deeply rooted country, he allowed history to rise into him from the ground beneath his feet. From the geological and spiritual roots, he took the Roman Empire and its poets seriously by letting them pass through him, through his soul, his body, his mind, and letting them re-emerge, utterly raw and unprotected, groping and a little incredulous, as if the old myths and words were blinking in the glare of a sudden morning after centuries of sleep. I like that this book looks like it's glowing, like it looks like I'm reading from like a portal. Precisely with this painter, whose works seem like the feverish curves of an eternal heated flickering between eras, there is something irksome about capturing this process for a fraction of a second with a photograph. One realizes that it is not only the artist, but also the artworks themselves that resist this form of fixation. Even in Robert Rauschenberg's early photographs at the start of this book, it is as if Twombly, as man and as artist, was too much of a medium to want to be an object. In this book, one also understands why Twombly himself was searching for a way to capture this fluency in his own photographs from his late work. He had found a visual language all his own in which concepts are blurred, where that which is natural blends into that which is constructed, just as if Twombly had been permitting his present and his reality to gradually darken into a dream. The artist's own photographs that round off this volume become a late testament to his own creativity as a painter, and as if spiting the illustrative aspect of the photographic medium, he celebrates the conditions of suspension and approximation therein. Yes, all the photographs of this volume move between the spheres of presence and absence, and in between lies Twombly's magical realm. I love that. The viewer never knows if the artist has just arrived or wants to leave. Love that. If the painting has just been placed where it is or if it is about to be removed. That makes the whole book a celebration of the transitional. This is especially the case in the late photographs of Bruce Weber, who visited Twombly in Gaeta in 1994, and with an incredible dedication to detail, created a black and white aesthetic of eternity through which sunbeams blink again and again as if they are greeting from above. Can't even. So the book goes on to talk about specific instances, relationships that he had with like artists or admirers, and like the specific pages and stuff that they are on in the book. So I feel like that might be a little tedious to read, even though there's a lot of good like poetic stuff in here. So I think I'm going to start again right here. Twombly's artistic murmurs and suggestions and scrapings were criticized again and again because his aesthetic movements supposedly moved in autotelic circles and denied any access to new realities beyond themselves. But the opposite is the case. The openness of his work and the permeability of his mind and body are what make his work accessible and not hermetic. Just as Twombly made antiquity contemporary because he experienced it as such, his oeuvre in turn retains its lasting contemporaneity by virtue of the transparency with which it reveals its own conditions and sources, its own ecstasy and despair. While most of the photographs in this volume show Twombly at a particular moment of his creative process, usually a skeptical moment, Horst succeeds in creating a Twombly who exists out of time, not tying him down to 1965, but revealing instead his durable vitality. In this sense, he is not locating the artist with these photographs as much as he is locating us, the observers. His photographs make the renaissance that defines Cy Twombly's work, his daily rebirthing of an antiquity wide awake into something that is a part of us. Everything's happening all at once. Fundamental to every evolutionary history of art is the vision of the present as the culmination of that evolution. Cy Twombly inverts that logic. Looking at his pictures, it is not clear if prehistoric cave paintings constitute the starting point of a long evolutionary process, or if they are not actually its end point. In the 1950s and 60s, when American art could hardly move under the burden of its own strength, self-confident and facing the future with conviction, Twombly demonstrated what contemporary art always is, a catalyst. But he believes more in the eternal fires of the past than in the accidental fevers of the present. The traces of these old flames are what we see in his artworks, and the achievement of Horst's photographs is that we can see in them how much Twombly needs this presence of antiquity in order to carry the luminous torches from there into the future, with a short detour through that blink of an eye we call the present. Literally, I don't know who I would be if I didn't feel like I was constantly living a past life. So that's pretty much the end of that excerpt. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, maybe after I'm done reading all this stuff, I will post a performance art piece of me sobbing and dancing. Because it feels important. It feels like really important I mean, there were many, many, many times in my life where I literally could not cry, and I was desperate to cry. So it's just, it feels important to me that, like, I have reached such a place of, like, kind of tranquil depth in myself that I don't experience, like, a lot of, like, inner violence or psychosis when, you know, like, I need to cry, and when I want to cry, like, it's a more or less pleasant experience, to the point that I can come immediately after and sit here and talk to you about, like, one of my favorite books and be in high spirits, because I just am kind of, like, embodying everything now, and past, present, antiquity, contemporary, and that feels really important.